Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the Audacity Factor podcast, coming to you this week, the second week of June and 2024. Wow, sometimes I see that and I'm thinking, oh my God, are you freaking crazy? Are you kidding me? Yes, I did just get my hair cut, and wow is really all I can say. As a retired master hairstylist and master colorist, it can be frustrating to have other people do your hair and have to then fix it afterwards. So, anyway, I'm still learning the ins and outs of doing that. So, episode 9 of the Audacity Factor podcast. My name is Kathryn Dahl. I am your host, also the founder of the Audacity Project, and I will tell you more about that soon. And I am really excited to let you in on this. It's a project, I'm considering it, but this one I want you all to be a part of. So I'll let you know more information in the coming weeks. So today, episode 9. Wow. I really want to talk about personal responsibility. Now, this is something we hear all the time. We probably heard as kids, or maybe not. Um, I think for me, there was definitely some kind of a missing piece there until much later in life where I recognized, I thought, wait a minute. My life is my responsibility. It's not up to somebody else to clean up my mess. It's not up to somebody else to fix whatever mistake I made, but it was completely under my control and it was fully my responsibility. And it takes a level of honesty with yourself to be able to come to grips with that. And again, I know for me that came later in life, after a decade in an abusive relationship. And I really recognized going through that terrible, I don't know that it's a process. It's not a journey. I don't know what it is. However, you would describe that to yourself. It brought me to a point of recognizing my own part in creating my life as it was. And I had all the choices in spite of the fact that you can feel like you don't, but they are actually all there. It's up to us completely what we devote our focus to, what's worthy of our devotion, what is worthy of our passion. And that could be who as well, which is something I learned for sure. Something I wrote today up on the board here is blame is the opposite of taking responsibility. If you find yourself pointing everywhere else, this was me, I was a single mom, my husband was a child and took no responsibility as a parent or a husband. My financial situation, later I was a single mom, my house burned out, all the things. I was always pointing everywhere else and literally pointing at circumstances that we can change. Sure, I couldn't change the fact that my house burned down. I recognize that. That's a physical, tangible thing. However, you can go through that as the victim, or you can go through that as, okay, this is what happened. What do I do now? Which was the tack I was able to take with that. When it comes to personal relationships, that's been a little bit more difficult, whether they're family, friends, intimate relationships. That's where I've kind of, what I'll say is throw myself under the bus. I know that may be a sensitive phrase for some, but I mean it in a metaphorical sense, not in an actual physical sense. So, when it comes to us taking responsibility, there are a lot of things that we need to take responsibility for. And, we all know the major areas of our lives, our relationships, our health, our finances, our careers, our jobs, and all of that starts with our thinking. We have got to take responsibility for what we think and what we believe. And I knew when I came out the other side of that relationship that lasted 10 years, and I went on to engage in the same pattern with a friend for a whole nother year, I recognized that I had to commit completely to taking responsibility for every aspect of my life. And I had to start somewhere. And that for me was starting with my thinking. My thinking at that time was all based in fear and anxiety and worry and probably some depression as well, but judgment and shame and all of those things that can turn into this big giant miasma for us, like a Dementor from Harry Potter. That's what that can be created from. And the longer we ignore it and the longer we feed it, obviously, the larger it gets and entwines its threads, we'll call them, through all of the rest of our lives. So until we can actually, number one, stop feeding it and then disentangle from it, and the less the less we feed it, obviously, the smaller it will get. So, and again, all of this is created by our thoughts. We believe this thing is there. You may believe you have these voices telling you, and it could be somebody in particular's voice, a family member, your father, your mother, your aunt, your grandmother, your brother, your sister, somebody's voice judging you, shaming you, being the perpetrator or the one that shames you. A lot of the times, though, well, most of the time, it's our own. And we've learned these things over time. One of the biggest responsibilities we have is to recognize what we're holding on to. And it doesn't even matter why. What are we keeping? Who? Now, this is typically about who. Who are we keeping in the little cells in our little secret dungeon? Because they need to be punished for what they did to us, how they treated us, what they said, what they didn't say, what they didn't do, how they trained us, how they betrayed us, whatever it is. We have them all in these little cells, and we are the keeper of the key. Do you have any idea how much energy that takes for you to do that? It's not causing them any kind of pain or anything. You're just making sure you keep them in their little cell because you think it's going to protect you from them doing anything else. You're going to cut them off. But in cutting them off, you deposit them into this cell and you lock them in and you have the key. Say, I have the key. I know you're there and you can't touch me. You know how much energy it takes to actually do that? Instead of being able to just, and I'm not saying people that have poor behavior, abusive behavior, aggressive behavior deserve a place in your life. I'm not saying that at all. Because we can make the choice to keep people at a distance. But we don't have to put them in their punishment cell in our little dungeon. We can just let them go on their merry way and be about whatever they do. This is not about us holding them accountable for what they did, because it's someone you actually don't even want in your life, maybe. We're expending our energy to make sure these cells are in good condition, they're in there, and the person can't get out, and that we have the key and the key works to lock them in. So just think about that. You may think that you've just let it go, or no, I don't have any attachment to that person whatsoever. How many times do you talk about them? How many times do you relate your experience? Or how many times do you just even are thinking about it? Thinking, I'm this way because blah, blah, blah. Whatever the experience was with the person or persons, it can be as well. And this is where our resentments reside. And so much of what we feel and physical emotional symptoms we have are based here in these cells of resentment. And I could go on: criticism, shame, judgment. So take a look at the people that you're still resenting. And one of these people could be yourself. You regret certain things and you continue to criticize yourself for doing that thing, or you criticize or judge yourself for continuing a pattern because you haven't learned your lesson yet. And that just amplifies all of it, because not only are we feeling victimized by the situation, but we're feeling victimized by ourselves, by our own self-judgment. And none of that feels good. And none of that's going to stop until you take full responsibility and commit to that. Commit to what's going to help you release your resentments. And that is one of those things, is by the unlocking of those cells that you have and actually allowing the person to walk away. Because again, you're not hurting them, you're only hurting you. And it keeps you focused on that kind of punishment scenario. I forget where I even heard this. A lot of you know that I study A Course in Miracles, and that was my go-to to be able to change my thinking. I have a lot of other sources as well, but that's been my primary one. I think it was in there that it's mentioned this concept of us keeping these people in particular in these little cells, and all the energy it takes for us to keep them there, instead of the past is over and it can no longer hurt me, which can be another concept that can be in your face, because you want it to continue to hurt you so that you can continue to be the victim of it. I get it. I did it for years and years and years. Told the story of being the single mom, told the story of my first husband being a cheater, told the story of my daughter's father being a terrible husband and or father. Being in this abusive relationship for a decade. And the list goes on. So, it's when we can drop those storylines, we can recognize the lessons. Yes. For me, it was, I have full responsibility to make the choices in my life. And I need to choose me. What is right and aligned for me, and without compromise. That could be a tough one, especially when it comes to maybe family, friends, past friends. But it's up to us to support ourselves and support our vision for the life we actually want, to be able to breathe life into that, not breathe life into all the separate people you have to punish for the wrongs that they did you. And I get it totally. They can be some terrible, terrible things. I've experienced any number of those myself. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. But it's up to us to recognize that it's our responsibility to heal from those. And it has to be by taking 100% commitment and taking action. We have to. Action's the only way something becomes real. You can make a choice, but if you don't act on the choice is still a latent possibility. It's not something that actually will come into being until you start taking action on it. And sometimes it's that physical action that can get us started. Whether it's don't return that text message, block that person, walk away, love people from a distance, knowing that they do not have to be in your vicinity. Have compassion for them instead of punishment. We all have our own lessons to learn, every single one of us. We cannot save our children from themselves. We can't save our parents from themselves. The only person that we can save is us. But we also have an opportunity in that to lead by example. I want my daughter to be able to see me saving myself. I want her to see me choosing myself, breathing life into what I want, not into what I don't want. Not ruminating in the past, because you know what? The past is over. We can't change it. We can't do anything about it. But you can allow it you can stop it from affecting you in the present and moving forward. Because I guarantee you, promise you, it dissipates the less we pay attention to it. And I'm not talking about your memories and all, whatever good memories you have. That's not about that. It seems like people take it as gun control, you know? We either have the guns or we're not allowed to have the guns. It's one or the other. Which is just, it's just kind of ridiculous. This is really about allowing each person to have their own journey, because we do. Every single person, and we do not have the right to take someone else's responsibility away from them, no matter how hard that can seem to be. You can only choose for yourself. You can only take responsibility for yourself, your actions, your thoughts, and your life. Every bit of it, every piece of it. In that, we are singular. However, we're not alone, ever. Because we all are in this together. Whether you believe that or not. It's what I believe. And if you're here at the Audacity Factor podcast, this is all about me challenging your thoughts, your thinking, your beliefs, your actions, and offering you scenarios for a better life. And not just for yourself, because it always has a ripple effect, no matter what it is. It can be love, it can be fear, it can be kindness, it can be aggression. It can be sadness, it can be happiness. All the things, they all have a ripple effect, and it all starts with you. All right. I'm going to wrap up episode 9 of the Audacity Factor podcast. And thank you for joining me. I really appreciate all of you who take the time to listen, to comment, and to give me any kind of hearts and thumbs ups that you do. Even the thumbs downs, I appreciate too, and any comments. So until next time, this is Kathryn Daw signing off as your host of the Audacity Factor podcast, episode 9.